If you're starting from $0, this is the moment your money stops depending on you and starts growing on its own. And most people never reach it. Most people never reach the snowball effect because they quit before their money starts working for them. Most people think you need to work harder to get rich, but the truth is the biggest wealth gains come from momentum. We are often taught that success is a linear path where every ounce of effort leads to a predictable, equal amount of reward. But life, and especially money, doesn't actually work that way. Imagine a small snowball at the top of a massive snow-covered mountain. If you just leave it there, nothing happens. If you give it one small push, it moves a few inches. But as it keeps rolling, it picks up more snow, gains more weight, and starts moving faster and faster until it becomes a force that nothing can stop. This is the snowball effect. Why do some people suddenly start getting ahead financially while others stay stuck for decades doing the exact same thing? By the end of this video, you'll understand why the first $1,000 is the hardest and why the next 100,000 becomes significantly easier. I'm going to show you a simple system anyone can use to trigger this momentum in their own life. The core idea of the snowball effect is simple. Small actions lead to momentum, which eventually leads to massive results. It is the process of building wealth through compounding growth where your previous gains start generating their own gains. This doesn't just apply to your bank account, it applies to your skills, your network, and your overall opportunities. The biggest mistake people make is quitting before the snowball actually starts rolling. They put in the work, they don't see an immediate explosion of results, and they assume the system is broken. But there's a reason most people never reach the momentum stage, and it has everything to do with how we perceive progress in the early days. Why do most people never experience the snowball? It's because the beginning phase is incredibly slow and often feels invisible. When you save your first $100, your life doesn't change. You can't buy a house with it and you can't retire on it. In fact, after inflation and the cost of living, it might feel like you're actually losing. This is where the psychological traps set in. We live in a world of instant gratification where we want the prize without the process. We see people at the end of their journey and wonder why we aren't there yet. Lifestyle inflation is another silent killer. As soon as someone earns a little more, they spend a little more, effectively melting their snowball before it even has a chance to form. Saving $100 a month feels pointless when you see people driving luxury cars, but the real growth happens much later. If you don't allow the foundation to set, you will never see the skyscraper. Let me show you exactly when the snowball actually starts getting big by breaking it down into 3 stages. Stage 1 is the push phase. This is arguably the hardest stage of the entire process because it requires the most discipline for the least amount of visible reward. You're at the top of the hill and the snow is packed tight. You have to physically push that snowball to get it moving with no momentum and no help. Every inch feels like a mile. This is your first $1,000 saved, your first 1,000 subscribers on a platform, or your first few months of learning a difficult new skill. Progress feels painfully slow and your brain will constantly tell you to stop because the return on investment seems non-existent. It feels like you are working for nothing. This is where 90% of people quit. They see the effort, but they don't see the mountain ahead, so they walk away right before the gravity of the slope takes over. Stage 2 is the momentum phase. This is where things start to get interesting. The results begin to compound and your systems start working for you rather than you working entirely for it. In this phase, your investments start producing returns that are actually noticeable. Your skills lead to higher income brackets because you've moved past the beginner level. Your network starts creating opportunities you didn't have to hunt for because people are now coming to you. The key insight here is that your effort becomes more efficient. You aren't pushing any harder than you were in stage 1. But the snowball is now larger, so it picks up more snow with every single rotation. This is the point where people from the outside suddenly start calling you lucky. They didn't see you pushing at the top of the hill. They only see you now that the hill is doing half the work for you. Stage 3 is the avalanche phase. This is the ultimate goal of building wealth and creating financial momentum. At this stage, growth becomes exponential. The snowball is so massive and moving so fast that it becomes an unstoppable force. Your investments might earn more in a single month than your entire annual salary used to be. Your business scales faster than you can keep up with because the brand name itself carries the weight. Opportunities don't just come to you, they multiply. At this stage, the snowball is so big it almost rolls by itself. You are no longer pushing, you are simply guiding the direction. The work you did 10 years ago is now paying you dividends that dwarf the work you are doing today. This is where true freedom lives, but you cannot jump to stage 3 without suffering through the silence of stage 1. Let's look at some real-life snowball examples to make this concrete. First, consider investing. If you put money into a diversified portfolio, the early years are boring. You might see a 5% or 7% return on a small amount of money, which barely covers a nice dinner. But after 20 or 30 years of compounding growth, those same percentage points are applied to a much larger balance. The growth curve turns vertical. Suddenly, the interest earned in a single year exceeds the total amount of money you contributed out of your own pocket over the last decade. Second, think about skills like coding, digital marketing, or public speaking. When you start, you are slow and you make mistakes. Your hourly value is low, but as you stack these skills, they don't just add up, they multiply. A coder who also understands marketing and sales is worth 10 times more than a coder who only knows how to write lines of script. Your income multiplies over time because your expertise has reached a critical mass. Third, look at content creation or YouTube. Your first 50 videos might get 10 views each. It feels like you are shouting into a void, but as you improve and the algorithm begins to understand your value, that momentum shifts. One video hits the right audience, which leads them back to your old videos, which triggers more recommendations. Eventually, you reach a point where your back catalog does more work for you than your new uploads. You have built a digital asset that grows while you sleep. How to start a snowball. First, start embarrassingly small, so small it feels almost pointless, but doable every single day. Do not immediately save half your money or work 20 extra hours a day. Put $5 a day in an investment account or spend 20 minutes learning a new skill. The goal is to get the snowball moving, to create momentum, not to see results right away. Step 2, concentrate on consistency even when it feels boring and nothing seems to be happening. Real growth is only built by small daily actions repeated over time. After pushing the snowball one day and letting it sit for a week, it will freeze and need to be repushed. If you push the snowball one day and stop for a week, it hardens and becomes even harder to move again. Focus on consistency. Third, never reset the snowball. Avoid quitting or cashing out your accomplishments for pleasure when it gets repetitive. That's the trap. The moment you stop, you go back to the top of the hill and have to start all over again. Step 4 is automating progress. Remove friction. Set up automatic savings or investment account transfers and build willpower-free habits. Your only job is to push the snowball until gravity takes over. Confidence builds without anyone talking about it. Small financial or career wins begin to shift how you see yourself, even if they seem insignificant at the time. Those early wins create motivation that pushes you to take bigger actions. You start to believe more is possible. When your savings account reaches a number you once thought was out of reach, something clicks and you realize the impossible was just a matter of time and consistency. That moment creates another snowball, this time in your mind. Because of this, successful people often succeed in many areas, not because of luck, but because they've learned how to build and trust their own momentum. They've seen what happens at the end, so they don't panic at the beginning. They know the slow start is part of the process. Stopping too soon kills the snowball the fastest. Most people are on track, but they stop before the hill steepens. They're frustrated after 6 months of trying to get rich. They experience lifestyle inflation and ruin compounding growth by upgrading their car or house after a raise. Every time you quit or deplete resources, the snowball rolls back uphill. You lose your most precious asset, which is time. Finally, most underestimate what 10 years of stability can do. In a year, we overestimate our abilities, but in a decade, we greatly underestimate them. The snowball effect applies to money, health, talents, and relationships. Staying in the game long enough for the snowball to become unstoppable is the key to an outstanding life, not working harder every day. Survivors of the push phase stage 1 will experience the avalanche. Continue pressing and rolling, and let time do the work. Building riches takes time and turns into a roar. Maintain your consistency and the mountain will help you. Stay consistent, trust the process, and eventually the mountain won't resist you. It will start working with you, and when that happens, everything changes.